Welcome back to our yearly roundup of all the weird news that has happened in 2021. If you're new around here and have missed the past 11 episodes, which actually I admire you if you're the kind of person that would pick up this series at the very end, so I'm not going to tell you what to do, you seemingly have no rules. However, if you've ended up here by mistake, like rules, and want to do this properly, then please make sure you head back and watch the first 11 after this one, because they're chock full of strangeness, which I think you might just be interested in learning about. I'm back today with 2 more weird tales from the year just past. And as a reminder, this won't be your usual news roundup. This is strictly the stuff that makes you go, we can all do this together this time. What? And if you're sat at a bus stop or on public transport, well done. That was a great effort. As quite frankly, politics, the global panny D, and the general destruction of the planet are not the kind of energy we want to be knowingly dragging into the new year. Now, that's not to say that these stories don't dally with the dark side, because they most definitely do, but there's also some light-hearted strangeness too. But don't worry, if anything is going to be hideously awful, then I'll give you a heads up first. So with the disclaimer out of the way, let's jump into our final episode of this series for 2021 and head to December. But before we do that, if you are new here, then hi, my name's Nikki and I make podcasts and videos about all sorts of weird stuff. So if you're into that, which I have a sneaking suspicion you might be because the algorithm has brought you here, then please hit subscribe so we can hang out together again. And if you're not new, then welcome back, old fiend. Nice to see you again. For our first story today, we're headed back out into space, and more importantly, to the moon. Checking back in with our friends the space robots, we have news from one of the little rovers out there doing some excellent tireless work on the moon. China's YUTU rover has been hard at work trundling across one of the craters on the surface of the dark side of the moon, seeing what it can find. So far it's been a lot of rocks and not much else, so you can imagine scientists' surprise when they checked in to see that YUTU had reported it had found a hut in the vast landscape of nothingness. YUTU at this point was on lunar day 36 of its exploration of the moon, and the object, it says, was at least a further 2 lunar days away from it. Lunar days are actually as long as an Earth fortnight, and so it would be a long while before the little guy made it there. From the first images the rover sent back of the hut, you can clearly see something very square-shaped in the distance. However, astronomers were well aware that this was probably just a very square rock. Following orders from Earth, YUTU continued on its mission to see if anyone was at home in the hut, and it took until a few weeks ago for the little robot to get a definitive answer. Sending back its findings and some photos, the hut is unfortunately, or luckily depending on your thoughts about aliens, just a rock. The rock, which the rover's parents have called the Jade Rabbit due to its similarity to the Jade Rabbit from Chinese mythology, which weirdly does live on the moon, is balancing on the edge of a crater and, despite first impressions, seems to be pretty small. The rock hasn't been collected by the rover, but it has taken plenty of pictures to add to its little scrapbook of the time it lived on the moon. Just as a side note, rovers are the cutest things ever. Did you know that the Mars Curiosity rover has Happy Birthday sung to it every year? Okay, so tangent time, but it's really cute, so you'll want to hear this. The rover's onboard lab, which sorts and collects the samples from Mars, has the ability to make noise, so it's been programmed to be able to sing Happy Birthday. So from inside the rover, its little lab friend sings it Happy Birthday. Coincidentally, this is the first song that's ever been played on Mars. Well, at least by humans anyway. The thing that makes me sad though is that the lab sings Rover Happy Birthday every year, but Rover never sings it back.
On this special occasion, you will hear this.
Okay, short break whilst I cry about that. Okay, so for our last story of this very weird series, it wouldn't be right if we didn't end on possibly one of the most bizarre sentences ever to be said. Camel beauty contest disqualifies competitors for having Botox and fillers. See, I told you it was weird. Competitors in the King Abdulaziz Camel Festival have been given strict instructions that camels competing aren't allowed to have any cosmetological interventions. More than 40, I repeat 40 entrants, were disqualified in the most recent Camel Beauty Pageant due to camels having received at least some kind of Botox, if not more, in their face and bodies. The prize for the winner of the most beautiful camel receives $50 million. So, I know it's cruel and awful, but I can see why you'd be tempted to turn your camel into the equivalent of J-Lo if a few nips and tucks were going to help bag that cash money. The judges now have to have a very keen eye for camels that look like they're defying the laws of nature, as contestants have been known to use growth hormones to bulk up muscles, fillers into humps to make them look smoother, and the aforementioned Botox to soften facial muscles to make them look prettier and less wrinkled. Anyone who is thought to have interfered with nature to make their camel prettier is given an instant disqualification from the contest, which could prove costly, as the outlay on the amount of Botox a camel would need would be pretty pricey. The beauty pageant, which is part of a wider camel festival which celebrates and preserves the animal as part of Bedouin culture, sees thousands of camels competing in races and also has a market where camels can be traded. The event organisers have had to crack down on cosmetic enhancements, as year on year the judges have noticed an increase in competitors trying to dupe them with a Pete Burns-esque beauty, from just 12 in 2018 to the whopping 40 in the last contest. The cosmetically enhanced camels aren't the only headline-making story from the Camel Festival though. This is also the first year that women have been allowed to compete. The overall winner of the women's category said she was very proud and happy that her and her camel had been allowed to take part in the event, and the event organisers have said they are looking forward to women being allowed to compete regularly from now on. So there we have it. That's our yearly roundup of all the weird news from 2021. But don't think we're ending just there. I have predictions for 2022. I know we're almost in February, or by the time I've actually released this, it might actually already be February, but I wanted to just quickly touch on a few predictions that have been made for 2022 by those that have the gift. First off, we have the OG of those who say they can guess what the future holds, and that's Nostradamus. Quick Nostradamus history lesson for those of you not familiar with his works. Nostradamus was a French astrologer from the 1500s who published a book called Les Prophéties, which had, apparently according to those who can interpret it, predicted such major historical events as the assassination of JFK and the rise of Hitler. So what does he have to say about what 2022 has in store? Well, hold on to your hats, kids. It ain't looking good. Now, I first want to preface this as, like all good pseudoscience, Nostradamus' works have an extreme vagueness to them, so it's really up to the reader to try and work them out as to what they mean. But some other clever people have weighed in with their thoughts and done the hard work, so we don't have to. And I'll leave a link to the source in the show notes, so you can look it up for yourself alongside the original translation if you like. First up, he says France will be invaded and go to war in the spring. Doesn't say who with or why though. Secondly, something which you can always rely on to change, Nostradamus says the economy will fall, possibly quite spectacularly, and people will suffer as a result. And the last one I'll leave you with, so you can mull over what it means on your own accord and leave it in the comments on YouTube or on my Instagram for this episode. He says, "The moon in the full of night over the high mountain, the new sage with a lone brain sees it. By his disciples invited to be immortal, eyes to the south, hands in bosoms, bodies in the fire." I got no idea, so feel free to let me know. Next up, we're getting some solid gold from Baba Vanga, a blind Bulgarian mystic who died in 1998. Baba Vanga has a pretty good hit rate on her predictions coming true. She predicted 9/11, the Chernobyl disaster, and also Brexit. However, amongst her predictions for 2021 were that there would be an assassination attempt on the president of Russia and a cure for cancer, so she doesn't have a 100% hit rate. Barbara, going in with the big guns off the bat, says that there will be an alien invasion in 2022. At first we'll think it's just an asteroid, but the asteroid will harbour alien life forms that will cause us harm. She also predicts that virtual reality will become more of our day-to-day life, and that technology will have something big happen to it during the year. What that is, she doesn't say, so I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. And finally, just as you thought we were making some headway out of the last few years, she predicts a pandemic which will come about as a result of global warming, when a frozen virus becomes thawed in Siberia and leaches into the world. So that all sounds wonderful. And I also have 3 predictions of my own to make. Number 1. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, will be forced to resign in February, but he won't actually leave until March. Number 2. There will be a new black hole discovered in space. Number 3. Kim Kardashian will get engaged. And go on then, I'll do one more because I'm drunk on power. Number 4. I can't hold up 4 fingers. A new species is discovered in Mexico. So there we have it. Make of that what you will, and we'll check back in at the end of 2022 to see if these things happened, and to see if I should be the new Nostradamus. I'm not going to lie, I reckon I'd look good in his hat. Thank you for joining me for that little mini-series. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for letting me indulge myself in creating something which originally was going to be just 2 episodes, but which turned into so much more. I promise you we'll go back to more normal stories now. Well, back to the normal murder and real-life horror stories we're used to. But if you want to see me do this again next year, then do let me know. I'm actually taking a break next week, so I will try and get an episode filmed and edited before I go, but if you don't see me next week on YouTube, then I promise you I'll be back the week after with another episode. Oh, and if there was any time better than now to join me on my social media, then please come along and join me on Instagram, TikTok, and, well, I don't really use the other ones, so just come and join me on those, as I'll be uploading quite a bit there during my break, and you won't want to miss it. Also, if you've enjoyed this series and want to help me make more weird stuff like this, and for the show to keep going, then please consider checking out my Patreon page and joining the Ghoul Gang, where you can exchange some monies in return for an extra episode a month and some exclusive goodies through the post. And depending on the tier you pick, you can also have your name read out at the end of each episode, like our executive Patreon producers, Amy, Barry, Bethan, Jess, Kate, Mary, Ren, Sam, Sarah and Veronica. And huge thanks to all of my other patrons too. If a long-term commitment isn't your thing, but you just wanted to send a tip or a gift for my Amazon wishlist, then I would massively appreciate that too, and I'll leave all the links in the show notes on the podcast and the description on the YouTube video. And there's also a nifty little button on YouTube now where it says thanks, which is like a little virtual tip jar, so if you're feeling generous, then that's an option as well. And a big thank you to Helen, who sent me this lipstick. It's now appearing in the episode, so there you go. The gifts really do appear on screen sometimes. An enormous thank you for even considering doing any of those things, as it really is the best when I get a new patron notification or a surprise parcel through the door, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support and the kindness you guys have the ability to show. You're the bloody best. Also, it doesn't have to be all about money and things. You can make me equally as happy by spreading the word about the show on social media, telling your friends, your colleagues, or a stranger at the bus stop. It all hugely helps the show to keep going and growing, and you might think it doesn't do anything, but I see you, you're making a difference, and thank you for helping. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I've been Nikki Druce, and I'll see you ghouls next time. Okay, I'm off on holiday now. I'll see you later. Bye, 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 bye.